Hi, Reverend Tony here with this month's Spiritual Challenge. This month, the first month of the year of 2022, I challenge you to take up an intentional spiritual practice and engage it daily for at least 2 weeks. What do I mean by spiritual practice? Well, don't let the word spiritual throw you off. You may consider spiritual to mean things that deal with the soul, the heart space, connect you to God or goddess or your religious tradition. You may consider spiritual to mean connecting to the human spirit, that spirit inside each and every person that strives for beauty and connection and love and fairness. Virtually every religious tradition in the world has spiritual practices associated with its approach, lived experience, and rituals. You may consider your own approach to be Christian or humanist or atheist or Buddhist or Hindu or Muslim or pagan or Jewish or agnostic. It doesn't matter. Spiritual practices are for everyone and anyone. A spiritual practice is an intentional routine discipline engaged to cultivate a sense of spirituality, spiritual development, spiritual experience. Spiritual practices are by definition intentional. They are done on purpose with the intention of cultivating your spirit. They are done on a regular schedule and require discipline. They are engaged beyond a surface level and involve the whole self. They require attention and a sense of dedication. Spiritual practices are done with regularity, depth, and intention, is one way we usually put it. Virtually anything can be a spiritual practice, for it is not the practice itself, but how you engage it that brings it into that heart space that makes it a spiritual practice. More traditional practices are things folks might automatically think of when you hear the term spiritual practice: prayer, meditation, yoga, tai chi, journaling. Creative endeavors can also be spiritual practices: painting, dancing, sculpting, crafting, knitting. Physical activity can be a spiritual practice. Things like walking, running, jogging, martial arts, hiking, sailing, skiing. Other spiritual practices that people engage in regularly that they may not think of as spiritual practices include things like fishing, gardening, woodworking, flying model aircraft. If it's done with regularity, intention, depth, and dedication, it can be a spiritual practice. I find it humorous that for many years now, as a spiritual director and minister, I've used the example of walking the dog as an example of a spiritual practice. And I never had a dog and never walked dogs at all much. And now I have a dog, and one of my daily spiritual practices has become walking the dog. Not every dog walk is a spiritual practice, however. If you rush home from work, get the dog, hustle the dog down the street for 10 or 15 minutes, not thinking about the dog much at all, but maybe talking on the phone to a friend, making plans for later, or briefing somebody at work on something you didn't get a chance to tell them before you left, and then hustling the dog back in the door and making dinner. That's not much of a spiritual practice. It's hard to do a spiritual practice while multitasking. However, if you walk the dog in a fashion where you pay attention to the dog and yourself and the world around you, let yourself ponder and just be, and be with your dog. Now that could be a spiritual practice. Spiritual practices don't need to be long to begin with. Consider 10 minutes a minimum for a daily practice. Somewhere in your day, there is 10 minutes, even if you have to get up 10 minutes early or stay up 10 minutes late to fit it in. If you can manage 10 minutes, try 15 or 20 or 30. For the truly adventurous, try to work up to an hour a day. I know, it seems like there will never be enough time in your day to fit in an hour of spiritual practice on a daily basis. But you never know. The more you practice, and the more practice is right for you, the more you're going to want to practice. For many years, I meditated every day as a spiritual practice. It is not my current daily practice, but at its height, I was meditating 30 minutes every day. And when I started with 5 minutes a day, I never thought I'd get to 30. I even did an entire weekend-long retreat that was done with a Zen community and ended up meditating most of my waking hours for 3 days in a row. And when I started at 5 minutes a day, I never thought I'd be in that place. Long-term spiritual practices are great for us in many ways. The end result of a practice is usually more mindful living and increased awareness both of one's own emotions and the needs and emotions of others. Depending on the practice, it can have a lot of health benefits, such as lowered blood pressure, a decreased experience of stress and anxiety, and better eating and exercise and general living habits. If you already have a regular spiritual practice, I adjust my challenge for you and challenge you to take up a second. When I was training to be a spiritual director, we had to take up a spiritual practice that was in the opposite vein of one of our current daily practices. If our daily practice was settled and quiet and introspective and still, such as mine was with Zen meditation, we were encouraged to try something that involved movement and more activity. So I tried walking as a spiritual practice. If this is where you're at, consider adding something to your day, or taking up a practice you may alternate with the practice that you've been doing for a while now. I would love to hear about your experience trying an intentional daily spiritual practice. If you want to contact me, please leave a comment in this video, or you can reach me at the email address here on the YouTube channel or on Facebook or Twitter. If you want to email me, it's revtony@pm as in Mary, .m as in Mary, E. I really hope that this challenge inspires you to take up something that helps you find your heart center, that helps you find your connection to what is holy, that helps you find a better way to live with more intention and integrity in the world. The ultimate result of daily spiritual practice is we become people who live with integrity. Virtually the only difference between the spiritual giants, Pema Chodron, Thich Nhat Hanh, Pope Francis, is that their spiritual practice has been developed over many, many years with much regularity and much depth. If we pay attention to our spiritual practices as seriously, we start to go down the road that they've traveled. Good luck. Enjoy your practice. Thanks a lot for watching this video on developing an intentional spiritual practice. It would help me out a lot if you could give this video a thumbs up, like it, comment on it, share it with others. I appreciate that a lot. We'll see you next time.